I get so many questions about my ear pointing, how I got it done, where I got it done, who did it, how I healed, everything. And that's why I'm here to speak to you today. Yo, my name's Lofi. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you've been well since the last time I saw you. And today I am going to be talking about a topic that is highly requested. One of the videos that I've been trying to make for such a long time, and every time I record it and I edit it, which I've done probably 3 or 4 times now, I'm just completely unhappy with it. So this time, I'm taking a completely different approach. We will be talking about my ear pointing experience today. There will be 2 parts to this series specifically for my ear pointing. The first video will be this one, where I go through the entire process from start to finish. And then the next video, I will do an FAQ. Now, I am taking a leaf out of Scream Kiwi's book, if you know, you know, because the FAQ side of things is, I can't cram it all into one video. There's so much, especially considering I traveled overseas to get my ear pointing. There's just too much for me to cover in one video. So without further ado, I will do my best to go through everything. I looked up old photos. Like, I really wanted to make sure that I was getting this as correct as possible, because this is a very important thing to be speaking on. Technically, there will also be a 3rd part to this specific series, but it's more related to body modification in general versus specifically just for ear pointing. If you have any questions about body modification specifically, I would wait for that video. I'm going to try and release it very shortly after this one. I really want to hammer into people the serious nature of this kind of work and how it can really be very, very dangerous if you go to the wrong people, if you don't do your research. The last thing I want talking about heavy body modification in the way that I do is to inspire people in an unsafe way. Body modification is a huge part of my autonomy. It's opened up so many different avenues for me. It's changed my life. It's also changed the way I view life and how I take on challenges. Body modification for me is incredibly sacred in all forms. So I really want to make sure I'm doing it justice by appropriately speaking about it, because it's all fun and games to see someone on the internet talk about how they've got this split tongue or they've got their ears pointed or whatever, but if you're not aware of the risks and how serious it can be if things go wrong, even if things go right for you, things in your life can be completely different. So please be aware of that. This is not something I'm talking about lightly, and I will be making an entirely separate video specifically on body modification. So that video is coming. Otherwise, we're gonna go straight into my ear pointing experience because I have so much to cover. First big disclaimer, of course, I am not a professional. I will be speaking on my personal experience when it comes to my ear pointing, and I will only ever be recommending my artist for this procedure. So please do not ask me questions that I will not be able to answer. The artists are always there for you if you would like a quote, or if you would like any specific questions about medical conditions or anything that you might be dealing with. I really recommend emailing Sampra and Anita themselves, because I am the wrong person. I'm not the professional. I'm not the one performing it, so I'm the wrong person to be directing those sorts of questions at. So please, Sampra and Anita are always there for you. They are the professionals, not me. During the course of this video, there will be photos of my ear pointing, both fresh and healed. So please be aware of that. There will be blood, there will be bruising, there will be swelling, there could be plasma, there could be a lot of icky stuff, okay? I will do my best to give you a warning, or at least put a sound effect on the video when those things are coming up. So if you're squeamish or you don't want to look at it or whatever, you can just choose to look away. But please, please, please be aware of that. There will be plenty of that in this video. So how did I discover ear pointing? The day I came across ear pointing, I was on YouTube. I was just going through my subscription feed, my recommended feed, and Scream Kiwi's video comes up. Now, as I mentioned, Scream Kiwi was one of the biggest inspirations for me when I was younger in terms of heavy body modification. It was considered. I also had a few other YouTubers that I watched for other piercing content on top of that, but Scream Kiwi was like the person that I was looking up to the most when it came to freedom of expression and doing things that I hadn't even considered when it came to body modification and jewelry setups as well. I was under the impression that all jewelry had to be this standard titanium ball on the end and you didn't have any room to move, or custom jewelry wasn't a thing. Very glad to say that my eyes were very, very widely opened, and I'm incredibly grateful for them sharing their experiences with body modification, which is another reason why I share my experiences. Scream Kiwi was the first person that I'd come across online who had ear pointing, specifically documenting their own experience. I'd seen photos here and there, but like I'd not really thought that much about it. And I'd always been into piercings. Like when I was very young, I desperately wanted snake bites. I always wanted eyebrow piercings and different sorts of piercings. And that led me to into Scream Kiwi's content, where eventually I came across this ear pointing video when they posted it. I didn't really put much thought into ear pointing specifically after I saw Scream Kiwi's video. I've recently been diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and I think it's my black and white thinking maybe that falls into this, but I felt like heavy body modification and like heavy piercings and stuff like high nostrils and cheek piercings and like heavy facial piercings and big tattoo work and all that sort of stuff was for other people. And I know that that's such a random, strange thing to be thinking, but I really did genuinely believe that that was just not something that I could do. It's just not something that I had the opportunity to do, or it was just not for me. Even though I wanted to do it and I had interest in it and I wanted to explore it, for whatever reason, I just created this rule that it just wasn't for me. I'm not sure if that's my upbringing or my own personal experiences or what that was, but that was the box that I put myself in for some bizarre reason. Until I met someone who is very, very important to me, and if you're watching this, I love you, hello. My dear best friend has her ears pointed, and I met her about 8 months, 9 months into her ear pointing journey. The story of how I met her is quite hilarious and one that I might tell in the future, but basically I came across this person, we eventually got talking, and at a party we were discussing the ear pointing that she had done, and I'd fallen in love with it. The second I saw how they looked on her, I was sold on it. I thought they were absolutely stunning, because it's one thing to see it online and see it through a screen and still be amazed by it and wowed by it, but it still feels like unobtainable or like it's out of reach. Whereas seeing it on my best friend, and obviously we weren't best friends at the time, we were just getting to know each other. Speaking now, as my best friend, I just thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Because I'm from Australia, I had a little bit of knowledge about heavy body modification and that something recently had happened and that something was illegal now. And I didn't really have any other context other than my best friend had had her ears done in the country, and I was thinking, wow, okay, well, if she can get it done, maybe I should inquire more, I should ask her more about it. So I spoke to her at length multiple times about her ear pointing, and it turns out she got her ears done by the same person who did Scream Kiwi's ears, and that person is Sampa von Cyborg and his wife, Anita von Cyborg. And they did Scream Kiwi's ears, my best friend's ears, and eventually mine as well. During those conversations, we discussed that Sampa used to be a traveling artist. He used to travel all over the world and do multiple tours of US, of Europe, and of Asia and Australasia as well. My best friend mentioned that she actually got into Sampa's very last tour of Australia right before Brendan Russell, aka B-Slice, made body modification essentially impossible to obtain safely within Australia. B-Slice and the history of body modification within Australia and modern history of body modification is something that I will be covering in that other video that I was mentioning. If some things don't make a lot of sense, I'll try and condense things to make sense for you in this video, but there is so much context and I've got so much to cover that I just want to try and get through it as quickly as I can. So here I am, now thinking, okay, well, I've fallen in love with the ears 2 years ago with Scream Kiwi's original video, and then years later, meeting my best friend and seeing her ear pointing, only to be denied because of the actions of one man. When I say that body modification, especially heavy body mods, unregulated heavy body modification, is incredibly unsafe, I am not joking. People have died, people have lost their quality of life from this sort of stuff. There are very good reasons why I warn people the way that I do. There are plenty of people online talking about their botched experiences. I really cannot stress that you only get this opportunity to do good work with the right artist once before that artist then has to work around damaged anatomy or whatever they have to deal with to try and make you feel comfortable within your own skin and also salvage whatever work was supposed to be done to begin with. Please do so much research and stay safe. Don't just leave it down to one Reddit search and think that you found someone, for goodness sake. There's so many hacks out there. Just please be safe. So that meant that I had to travel overseas. I had to fly all the way around the world if I wanted to get my ears pointed by Sampa von Cyborg. And I wasn't about to go and get my ears pointed by anybody else. Sampa von Cyborg is known as the ear pointing cyborg. Sampa created this specific technique of ear pointing in 2002. It is currently 2026. He has been ear pointing in this style and modifying his technique, improving his technique for the last 24 years, okay? I don't understand why you'd be willing to go to anyone else, especially when you look at other mod artists' work and compare it to Sampa's, especially when we're talking about ear pointing and the stitches and the quality of the work. Like, for goodness sake, if you're gonna go to get ear pointing, Sampa is the person you wanna see. Sampa is your cyborg. I really cannot stress that enough. So the modern medical world views heavy body modification as mutilation. Tongue splits, coin slots, ear pointing, subdermal implants, nipple removal, belly button removal, whatever you can think of that is a heavy body modification is essentially a big gray area So it's not completely illegal, but it's illegal enough to stop the right people from doing the good work. So if anyone in Australia for any reason is telling you that they can perform heavy body modification, run the opposite direction. For your own health, for your mental health, for your physical health, just do not attempt, do not pass go, do not collect $200. And don't get me started, I think it's ridiculous that you can get many forms of cosmetic surgery, but the second we speak about modifying our bodies in ways that we would like to, it's suddenly viewed as mutilation. I could speak about that for forever, and there is a video already existing on that on my TikTok, so you're welcome to go and check that out. So I basically benched this idea of getting my ears pointed, because what was I gonna do? I didn't have the money to fly overseas at this point in time. I was working full-time at a cafe restaurant and working a second job at a butchery. I was not earning enough money at this point in time to be considered eligible to be putting down a deposit for my ear pointing and then flying overseas. In the time in between time where it wasn't feasible for me to travel overseas and I didn't have the money to do so, I decided to email Sampa and Anita just to see if I had the correct anatomy, just to see if they had anything to add or to say about ear pointing, anything that I wasn't sure about or needed further clarification on. And the first time you email them, you do have to go through a verification process. This is just for them to make sure that you are someone who is very serious about body modification and someone that is genuinely interested in the procedure, and not someone who is trying to write a clickbaity article about the body mod world, which we really don't need that kind of negative press out there. It is a completely safe verification process. You don't need to be alarmed or worried about any of the questions they're asking you. They value privacy and they value their clients. They are professionals. You do not need to worry about anything to do with that. I also sent them through photos of my ears so she could absolutely confirm for me that I was able and eligible to get ear pointing. You just take a very flat facing photo of your ear to ensure that they can see everything. You don't want to take it slightly off angle, you don't want to take it from above, you just want to take it flat facing your ear so they can see very clearly whether or not they can work on you or whether they cannot work on you. I then, in response to my verification being complete, I got this very, very long email discussing everything that I would need to know. I've just pulled up the email now for clarification. I will not be reading the email verbatim, but I will be touching on very important information within this. Basically, they give you a breakdown of everything you need to know. They will tell you how much your ear pointing is going to cost and what the deposit will be. If you want to know the price for your ear pointing, email Anita, email Sampa. They will give you a precise quote for your specific ear pointing, which means you don't need to worry about figuring out if you do or do not have enough. Every person's anatomy is completely different. Some people have had previous piercings, which means they have extra stuff to work around. Also, I just want to say, please don't be shopping around for heavy body modification. There's a saying in the mod world and the tattoo world that good tattoos aren't cheap and cheap tattoos aren't good. And the same thing can be said about heavy body modification, except you are really, really upping the ante, potentially putting yourself at so much risk. Please just do your research. They also confirmed in the email that they would not be continuing to tour Australia after the events of Brendan Russell, aka B-Slice, and they let me know at the time of this email, this was in 2019, 7 years ago, they were operating in Spain. They do not operate out of Spain now, they operate out of Poland, so please keep that in mind. I'm referring to them in Spain the entire time in this video because that's where I went when I got my ears pointed. I also wanted to confirm with Anita how long I should be staying in Spain, because what happens is you go in for your procedure, you get your ear done on one day, the second ear done the next day, and then you wait about 2 weeks where you have external stitches and then the external stitches are removed. I wasn't sure whether or not it was worth me going over for the entire 2-week period and waiting for Sampa to take the stitches out himself, or whether or not it was safe for me to go back home. So I also made sure that I was checking with Anita during this emailing process whether or not I should stay in Spain or I should go to someone else to get my stitches out, because that's what I was nervous about as well, because a lot of people were talking about how the stitches being removed is also incredibly important, and if you go to the wrong person to get your stitches removed, they can do damage to your brand new baby heel and ears, and we don't want that because we've just spent all this time making them look pretty. We don't need some fucking random person who has no idea what they're doing and never seen them before fucking them up. Anita also let me know that I could stay the full 2 weeks in Spain. She said if I wanted to travel home, I could, but just to wait a few days after my procedure so I'm not traveling immediately afterwards. Sampa and Anita like you to stay around for about 48 to 72 hours after your appointment, just to make sure that everything is good in case something, you know, maybe doesn't go to plan, and Sampa can get in there and help you as quickly as possible. Anita also reassured me in that email that I could send her as many things as I'd like, as many questions. She didn't mind. She said to me once that she had someone ask over 100 questions, and she said she would more than happily answer as many questions as you could possibly think of. She encourages people to make sure they have the full picture of what they're going to go through before they go and get it done. I respect that so much. I also checked with Anita because at the time, and very much still apparent now, I shaved my head quite frequently, especially the sides of my head during the time of my ear pointing. And I wanted to double check with her whether or not that would still be possible while my ears were healing, because obviously you can't knock them, you can't bend them, you can't bump them during that first year. So I'm thinking, how the fuck am I going to be able to cut my hair around my ears without moving them? And my God, do I have some horror stories from barbers, because you've got to remember I healed my ears through COVID, which was a bit of a nightmare, but I might save those stories for another time. So Anita reassured me with the hair cutting. She said a good barber would never have to move your ears anyway, and I can confirm I have an absolutely wonderful barber. I'm going to plug them right here, the gorgeous Zach. I cannot recommend following them enough. Even if you don't have the opportunity to go and see him, or you can't go and see him or anything else, just chuck him a follow. He is such a wonderful, warm, lovely person, and his work deserves so much more recognition. I have been shaving my head recently, so whoops, but you can definitely go and have a look at all of his work and the previous hairstyles that I've ever had done. Just quick go and check him out, please. Thank you. Anita was right. A good barber should be able to miss your ears, and I went to plenty of not good barbers. They also let you know that they want you to shave, at least at the time. I'm not sure if they're still fine with taping hair back, but at the time of this email, you had to shave a few centimeters around your ears just so they had more room. So I basically got that entire email. It's a very long email. Rereading it, I didn't realize how long that email was. It's a very long email. They give you in detail every piece of information you could possibly need. And Anita and Sampa then also email you closer to the date as well with even more information. So they are always available for you. Anita handles all the social media stuff and all of the communication back and forth between organizing appointments, etc. Very shortly after I received that email, that's when I really started to think about whether or not this was a procedure that I could actually live with going through, and live with the potential consequences as well if things went poorly. A couple of the things that I was most worried about when I was looking into getting my ears pointed was that I wasn't allowed to sleep on them for the first year of them being pointed. You are told that if you knock, bend, or bump your ears, or if you sleep on your ears in the first year of having them pointed, you can just completely collapse it and it just looks like a very flat, it can lose its shape essentially. And I was really worried about not being able to sleep on my side for a year plus. I am an adamant side sleeper. I cannot sleep on my back. I cannot sleep on my stomach. I'm only able to sleep on my side. So I was very nervous about that. I did not know how that was gonna go. I was nervous about not being able to feel my partner's shoulder, or, you know, snuggle up with them on the couch without being terrified of their shoulder hitting me, or they're accidentally elbowing me, or they turn their head too quickly. Like, I was very, very anxious about that specifically, and that was one of the biggest things holding me back. Obviously, I knew aesthetically it's what I wanted, but was it going to turn out that way? What if there was a catastrophic incident? You know, what if I went necrotic and my tissue started to die off and we had to do emergency reconstructive surgery on them? Sampa, you know, I'm not going to go to a random plastic surgeon. Sampa's the only one who knows what the inside of my ears look like. Sampa walks you through all of that information. I was just stressing because it's a very big change you're permanently making to yourself. This is not something that you should see on someone and immediately think about booking. You should really be thinking about the long-term effects of this. There was a massive change for me career-wise as to what I wanted, because heavy body modification is irreversible and you cannot just decide to add more cartilage once it's cut off. So I really had to weigh up my future. I had to think about what my career was going to look like, whether or not things were going to be impacted by that long term. You really have to sit down and think about all this stuff, and I mean it. You should be thinking this deeply about heavy body modification. This should not be something that you see once and just decide to go and get done, because it can have serious repercussions for you, especially when you talk about things like tongue splitting, where people think it's a very hidden modification because it's in your mouth, and they got fired from their job because their boss noticed when they were talking. And that's all it takes, you know? And unfortunately, in the world that we live in, that's just how it goes down. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. But these are the things you need to be considering when you're getting heavy body modification. Now, my ear pointing has been mistaken for natural more than once, but that doesn't mean that it's not something that stands out and may not get you the job that you are looking at. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Also, if you're going to be working a very manual labor job or a veterinary job or somewhere where you're around kids, you need to think about if they're going to be damaged, especially during the healing process, but afterwards as well. Like, one bad accident with your ears years and years after they're healed, I mean, you've got permanent internal stitches on the inside of your ears forever when you get your ears pointed. Like, these are things that can be ruptured and you can still do damage to your ears even if they are healed. Obviously it's catastrophic if they're still healing, but it can be catastrophic well afterwards too. So you need to be thinking about so many facets and aspects of your life and deciding whether or not this is something that you really want to commit to. During this time, I didn't just take on my best friend's experience, which yes, obviously was invaluable, but also I took on Scream Kiwi's experience, being the only other person who I had access to at the time who was talking actively about their specific experience with Sampa. I also joined Sampa and Anita's Facebook group, which I cannot recommend enough. I do not care if you think Facebook is for old people. If you want to get heavily modified and you want to do it safely, Facebook groups are the place to find that information. Reddit is not the place to be. There's artists on there who are actively shutting down people's stories, allegedly. There are people sharing information that they think they have all the answers to and in reality are not safe, recommending people who are not safe. So I really recommend these two Facebook groups, but the one specific one that I'm going to be mentioning here is the Ear Pointing by Sampa Von Cyborg Facebook group. It has almost 10,000 members. You have people talking about making their own DIY pillows and ensuring that they were comfortable during their healing process, people sharing their experiences who have actually gone through it, people who are sharing testimonials and things that they recommend or wouldn't recommend. I really cannot stress to you enough that this group is such a valuable resource when it comes to ear pointing information. Sampa and Anita are also active in the group, so you can ask them things directly before or after emailing too. And they're very open with the things that they leave on the page too, so you can get a really good idea of what you're walking into essentially. If the only thing holding you back is I don't want to join Facebook, just join Facebook for the groups. Literally the only reason why I have Facebook is for the groups, and I really can't recommend it enough. The only other page that I would recommend on Facebook is the Rusty Cyborg Body Modification Club page, is also very good. Also run by Sampa and Anita. Plenty of information there. I cannot stress using the search features, which I don't know why people have forgotten that they exist. The search features in Discords or on Reddit groups or in messages and comment sections on Facebook groups. Like, you need to be looking at that. You need to be typing in artists' names that you think you've heard of or reputable piercers in the industry. I'm dropping so many hints for you to find things, so please don't be in my comments telling me to link things. If you can't do this level of research, I don't genuinely believe that you're ready for body modification. And I know how that might sound, but this is not something that you just jump into. People talk about gatekeeping the heavy body modification community. I just want to see the body modification thrive in a safe environment, and I want to see people have safe experiences within the community and within the body mod world. One night I went to see my best friend, we were catching up, and she told me very excitedly, by the way, I've already booked in to go and see Sampa again in October. Now this was 2019 at this point, okay? So this is before COVID. What a time. And at the time I was in a relationship, my best friend was in a relationship, and her partner was gonna go, and I thought, well, this is my opportunity to get my ears pointed. I can also split my accommodation 4 different ways. This is probably the cheapest shot that I'm ever going to get at ear pointing without paying full price for accommodation and travel and all this sort of stuff. My ex's family has a lot of money. They contributed a significant amount to accommodation and to airfares for this trip for a number of reasons. I also sold my car to be able to travel overseas, which was a whole separate issue on its own. I also quit my 2 jobs because they just weren't giving me enough hours and the conditions weren't very good, and then I started working at a new place. So I was like slowly building money to see if this was actually something that I could achieve. I found myself in a position where I was finally able to respond to Sampa and Anita's email. I'd spent a few months weighing up exactly what I wanted to get from this, how I felt about it, my career options, my comfortability. As I said, I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism very recently. I've been struggling with it my whole life. I didn't know. I mean, the last few years I've had a pretty good idea, but I didn't know. And I knew that I had sensory issues, and this was another thing that I was very concerned about going into this, was sensory-wise. Am I gonna be too overwhelmed not being able to sleep the way I need? Or there were all these different things that were going through my mind about this. I just responded to Anita's email and basically just double checked that she had availability on or around the same dates that my best friend was traveling for her procedure that she was getting done. So then it comes to me paying my deposit. I paid my deposit on the 4th of May 2019. That's when I received a big list of aftercare products that I should be thinking about bringing to Spain with me. They gave me a whole breakdown of the area that I should be staying in, places that I might enjoy on my trip over there. They let me know how long the procedure might be. They gave me extra tips for healing. They also set me through a bit of the pre-consultation that I would be having before I actually got my ears pointed. So when I'm actually sitting there on the day about to get them done, you also go through a little consultation. But she sent me through like a written version of that consultation, a little brief, a little outline of what I was going to expect, which was wonderful. And I booked for the 23rd and the 24th of October. So then comes time for my travel. So I fly all the way to Spain. I fly into Valencia and I have a beautiful Airbnb in an absolutely horrible area, which I didn't know at the time, but because I didn't know, it was sort of like rose-colored glasses, and I sort of had a feeling pretty soon after I explored the area that maybe it wasn't the best, but it was a great time. I had a wonderful time, and I would definitely go and check out Valencia again. I'd love to check out the rest of Spain. So I actually arrived in Valencia on the 21st of October. My best friend was arriving the next day on the 22nd, and then we were going to go to the location of my ear pointing together. We had to get a train, which was about an hour train ride from Valencia to the location where my ear pointing was. And on the way there, we almost got hit by a car, which was just so unbelievably chaotic. And as we got to the train station to get this train, we barely made the train to begin with. We got to the train station, it had 5 minutes before it was departing. We had to buy tickets, which none of us spoke Spanish, so that was a bit of a nightmare. And we're trying to buy these tickets from this lady, and we can hear the announcement and sort of understand that the train is going to be leaving very soon. We get our tickets, we grab our bags, we bolt down onto the train station, we get to the platform, we board the train's dark. No one on the train, nothing around us, carriage is dead, no electricity. And we're like, okay, have we gotten on the wrong train? Have they just not like turned it on yet? Like, we were all very confused about what the fuck was happening. Anyway, we got off the train quite quickly. We had to run further up the platform to get on this train. We finally make it onto the train. We sit down. I'm anxious as hell. I'm like, fuck, we almost missed our train. I could have missed my appointment. Like, you know, I was just like going over and over in my head. And we didn't have to be in this location until the next day, but the trains were very few and far between that ran to this place that we needed to get to. And it was my fault because when I read the email, Anita told me that the nearest major city was Valencia and where I needed to go to was about an hour away. And for whatever reason, I didn't put that together. So we had to then make plans quite quickly to travel to this town in order for me to get my ear pointing done. Anyway, we're on this train. We're about 10 minutes into the journey and the train suddenly comes to a stop. And again, all the announcements are in Spanish and we're all looking at each other like, what the fuck's going on? And we basically find out that the train broke down because we had to ask someone to translate for us, and the train broke down. And then we started going backwards. At this point, I was full on like ready to have a baby, essentially. I was like, what the fuck? Are we gonna get here on time? Like, I wasn't overly panicky or anything, but I was definitely like knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already. I'm nervous. Like, I was having a time. We eventually get back to the station, we get back on a new train, and we eventually get to our location like 3 hours later. So this was my final night before my ear pointing. I spent it very comfortably on a very soft, fluffy pillow and was just really trying to get as much sleep as I possibly could and almost intentionally thrash around like a newborn child just to get it out of my system because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it for at least a year. I did hardly sleep. I was like a kid on Christmas. I, at this point, was more excited than I was nervous. I just wanted to go and get it done. I just wanted it to be over, not because I was nervous about the procedure, but just because I wanted to have them already. Now, very importantly, the next morning I woke up, I had a shower, I made sure that I'd washed my hair and that everything was feeling good. And then I had to really think about what I was going to wear to my appointment, because obviously when you get your ears pointed, they're going to be swollen. They're going to stick out more because of the swelling, which means that taking your shirt on and off is going to be a different affair than usual. So I wore to my appointment a really big scoop neck, open neck t-shirt. Something that I could very easily take on and off. You can also wear something button up so you can just take it on and off that way. I don't recommend wearing anything like a bodysuit or something tight, especially if you've got to move around other modifications like I did. At the time, my high nostrils were antenna-like because we hadn't downsized them because of the swelling, and I just had my nape dermals done a few months, like at that point, probably like 8 months ago at the time of my appointment. And I had to be super careful not to catch these and not to catch the bottom of my vertical labret, which at the time wasn't a spike, but I could still catch it, and my nape dermals. So if you have nape dermals specifically, I have other advice for you as well. I don't think a lot of people will fall into the category of specifically having nape jewelry and also having their ears pointed, but I can definitely provide those specific people some information. God, I wish I'd had that information at the time. The day of my appointment arrives. My best friend also has her appointment right before mine. Anita organizes a taxi to come and pick us up from where we were staying at our Airbnb, and then we traveled from where we were at our Airbnb to the location of my ear pointing. The taxi ride was absolutely gorgeous. We were going through the countryside of Spain. It was beautiful. A part of Spain that I probably wouldn't have seen had I not gone to this appointment. Apparently, Sampa and Anita were very familiar with the taxi company, so they knew they were going to this place. They fully expected to pick up people having had some sort of surgery performed. My friend and I were just talking the entire time, and then we arrived at the appointment location and Anita met us out the front. And Anita, as I said earlier, is such a warm, gentle, kind, loving soul. She was so unbelievably accommodating and welcoming. She immediately put any sort of nerves that I may have had completely at ease. She gave me a really big warm hug. She hugged my friend. She asked her how she'd been since the last time she saw her. Anita walked us into the sort of like waiting room area that we were going to be sat in, and she just let my friend and I know that she was going to go and prep the operation room and that she would be back shortly, and Sampa would be speaking to me about my procedure. I wasn't allowed in the room when my best friend was having her procedure done. It was a very, very quick procedure. It was over in a matter of 15 minutes to half an hour, and she came back from the operation room with Anita and Sampa, beaming, such a happy look on her face. She said goodbye to me because I was going to be there for a few hours getting my ear pointed. So she gave me a hug, she wished me well. I said that her procedure looked incredible because it did. And then she ducked off. And then it was just me and Anita and Sampa. And Anita went back down to the operation room to clear it all out and make sure it was all sterile and ready to go for me. And then Sampa sat across from me and went through the final pre-operation information, essentially, that I needed to be completely aware of before we started the procedure, which I really appreciated. Walking someone into an operation room, taking their money and saying you're going to do something is a big red flag for me. And Sampa really made me feel educated and informed the entire way through, which is something as an autistic person and needing to understand the hows and whys of literally everything, it really helped me settle down and just grasp everything really, really coherently. Sampa really reiterates to you in this moment that it is a completely irreversible procedure. Once you cut cartilage away from your ear, you can't put it back. There's no surgery where you can just stick it back in there. Cartilage never fully fuses back together, which is why I mentioned internal stitches earlier, which are a very critical part of Sampa's ear pointing and ensuring that they keep the structure, and it just helps them hold together just that bit more. He really reiterated to me the healing time, the specific aftercare that I would be requiring. He went through the list with me again in person to make sure I had everything. He gave me information about specific aftercare for my ear pointing and any issues with blood being in specific areas, or in the future removing the external stitches and how that would go. Sampa has connections all over the world. Sampa and Anita are known as mod fathers for a reason, because of their advances in because of their advances in the modern body modification world and the things that they are doing for the community. Sampa then reminds you of the very remote possibility of necrosis, which is essentially the dying of tissue that has to be cut away in order for your body to heal. If you leave necrotic tissue on your body, it's just going to infect other tissue and you're going to end up with a whole heap of necrosis, which is not what you want. Sampa then again asks you if you struggle with any sort of circulation issue or if you have Raynaud's. Here is where I put a huge asterisk on my story. Very recently, I was diagnosed with features of primary Raynaud's. I think it's something like 6 physical health diagnoses at this time. But at the time of my ear pointing consultation or appointment, I wasn't aware of them. I've been struggling with my health issues my whole life. I want to make that abundantly clear. I was struggling with them at the time of my ear pointing. I just didn't know. I didn't know that's what it was. So I cannot reiterate to you enough. If you have issues with circulation, if you have POTS, if you have EDS, if you have Raynaud's, if you have any form of heart condition or really can't stress the circulation enough, you must make them aware of that because it can make you a much higher risk of going necrotic. You want them to know that because they can attack the procedure slightly differently, they can attack the aftercare slightly differently with you. Like, you really want to make sure that you do not have these afflictions. And I really recommend, to the point of going to a doctor and getting them to sign off on the fact that you absolutely do not have a heart problem or circulation issues or a connective tissue disorder or something that is going to delay the healing process. You really need to be aware of all of that sort of stuff, like any sort of autoimmune condition or chronic illness. Like, they need to be aware of that. I am so lucky that my features of primary Raynaud's are mild. I do not have severe features of primary Raynaud's, which I'm very grateful for. I responded in an email to Anita when she specifically asked if I had Raynaud's, and I said that my extremities do get cold, but I googled what Raynaud's was and I didn't have the extreme symptoms that I was seeing photos of or reading about, so I just assumed that I didn't have it. Big fucking mistake. This is why you do these procedures when you're older than 21, which is how old I was when I got my ear pointing. I don't regret getting it done that young, but I regret being a little bit naive. I don't want to say I was blasé about my health because I was very educated about what I was going to be expecting, and I had plenty of help. I had my best friend there who'd already had the procedure done. I also had Sampa and Anita there. Like, I thought that I was making all the right decisions and had all the information. The thing is, with informed consent, you have to have all the information in order for it to be informed consent. I didn't have that information. I'm not blaming Sampa and Anita for that at all. That's 100% on me. I am just very lucky that I didn't have further complications because of my chronic health issues that I've been diagnosed with this year specifically. So please, if you are going to get any form of surgery, let alone heavy body modification, whether it's an elective surgery, please, for the love of Christ, go and check with your medical professional, whoever it might be, general doctor, whoever it is. You need to go and be 100% sure that you do not have these issues. Sampa again reiterated that on the couch, and I very confidently said that I didn't struggle with it. So just please don't be me. Be educated, be a little bit more sensible. I look back now at the ripe old age of 28, and that's about the only thing that I really think that I should have put more thought into. That side of things I just didn't think about, and I really recommend that you do think about it. Sampa also lets you know what the procedure will look like, and when I say that, I mean the steps of the procedure. He walks you through what happens when you get down there, what they will be doing, what it will feel like, what it will sound like, and what they will do after the procedure. He also again states that I am unable to sleep on them, knock, bend, or bump them for the first year, and it could take up to 2 years to fully heal from my ear pointing, which at the time when I was reading on the Facebook groups, a lot of people were saying that they got to the year mark or just before the year mark and didn't need to worry about sleeping on them, that they didn't have any discomfort. In the years since, it has become much more public knowledge, or at least people's experiences have changed, or perhaps more people are coming forward just talking about it. But almost every single comment or story that I'm hearing about people's specific ear pointing is that it took them about 1.5 years to comfortably sleep on something again, which is what it took me. And keep in mind, I have chronic illnesses, and these people who are also talking about this do not have chronic illnesses. So I want to make this abundantly clear, whilst yes, I'm coming at this from a lens of I am chronically ill and I had this procedure done and I didn't know it at the time, there are other people who are not chronically ill and have since not been diagnosed with chronic illnesses who had the similar time that I did, as far as it just taking a little longer than we thought, which I don't really mind. I didn't care. I was going to listen to my body the whole way through, regardless of timelines or anything like that. I was always going to follow exactly what my artist said and then some, because I wanted to be sure that I babied them. When my ears are brought up, people say, wow, they look so natural and they look incredible. And of course, a huge part of that is Sampa and Anita's actual work and the effort, and 99.99% of it is them. But the small percentage of it is me healing them and making sure that I healed them well. Sampa also tells you if somehow how you ended up going necrotic, which he really reiterates how remote that is of a possibility, especially if you've been completely forthcoming with all of your medical issues. He lets you know what the steps would look like if you have to go through that. So for whatever reason, if you do end up doing that, he tells you everything you need to know, so you don't end up scared and worried that you've got to go through this whole other thing. He just already tells you what to expect ahead of time, which I didn't need to worry about because I didn't go necrotic. And I really want to reiterate that very few people who've ever had this procedure done by Sampa have ever gone necrotic. So 9 times out of 10, that's because of shit aftercare. Sampa also lets you know, whilst your ears are healing, you will not have feeling in them. You lose feeling from your procedure site all the way to the top and above. It's just not something I thought about. I was too busy thinking about every other aspect of this potential procedure. I just didn't think about that. Your nerves have to heal up and they've got to reconnect and it's all got to come back together. He said you lose the feeling in your ears for the first few months. The very tips of my ears were the last thing to come back, and I want to say that that took just over a year for the entire feeling to come back. I started slowly being able to feel my ears before that, but I wasn't touching my ears. I wasn't fucking with them because I didn't want to mess with them. I didn't want to do any irreparable damage or anything like that. I was slowly able to tell that I had a little bit more feeling, but you do lose feeling in them for the first few months, if not years. So that's something you need to be aware of as well. He then again informs you about the permanent internal stitches that you have on the inside of your ears and anything that could potentially go wrong with them. He said the most common thing that can happen regarding the internal stitches is that you heal up and you end up with a little bit poking on the outside of your ear. So you just have this little internal stitch just poking out and making his presence known. And he tells you how to look after that if that happens to you. Sampa then also lets you know that after the procedure is done, it is up to you to get circulation back to your ears. So basically, because you're cutting and reshaping the ear, you need to get blood flowing back to that area quite quickly so it doesn't go necrotic and the tissue doesn't start to die, which was one of the aspects of it I was most terrified of, because if I make it through the procedure and they don't heal well, then I've got to come back to Sampa and try to get them salvaged. He then took me down into the procedure room, he prepped everything, and they took some before photos, which I will throw up here. Here are the before photos. There is no blood, no nothing. I'll also put the before photos that I took up. If they haven't already been up before during this video, I'll stick them up there now so you can have a look. That's what we were working with before my ear pointing procedure. This is where the procedure actually starts. And can you believe it? I've been recording for 1 hour and 15 minutes and I'm not even up to the actual procedure. I have 8 pages of notes and I'm on page number 4. I feel good about this video though. The operation room had this little speaker. They were playing music that I would listen to on a daily basis anyway, and music that I would listen to at work. So it was perfect. I felt really comfortable and really relaxed, and I think it also really helped Sampa get into the mood and the headspace of ear pointing. I then laid down on the table and they started cleaning off my ear. This ear was the first ear that I got done, my right ear. So they just cleaned it all up. They made sure it was all sterile and they put the cloth over me so they could focus specifically on this ear area. I was then asked for 100% clarity and if I was completely certain if I wanted to continue on with this operation, whether or not I suddenly wanted to pull out or I just wasn't feeling it, which is something that I discussed with my mother before I went. Telling family about this procedure was a whole thing, which I will go into in the FAQ video that I promised. There's a lot of context here, but essentially she just said to me, you know, if you get to the point where you're on the table and you change your mind, you can say that. You can say, no, I don't want to do this. And Sampa and Anita, they provide you with more than enough opportunity to speak up and say, hey, actually, I don't want to do this. They then proceeded with a quick pain check. You do not feel anything during this procedure. I have to talk about this in a very specific way. If you can read between the lines, which me, an autistic person, can read between the lines, I know that you can too. I have faith in you. I know you got this. You do not feel anything during this procedure. And if anyone comments asking specifically about this specific aspect of pain management during heavy body mod procedures, the comment will be deleted. Basically, all you need to know is that it is completely painless. This is not something you need to be worried about. It is completely pain-free. Obviously, if you have any concerns, maybe you have a resistance to certain things, then you should discuss that with them. I was also awake for the entire procedure, so I was not knocked out. Now, this is something that I was incredibly happy about. I am terrified, and I mean terrified, of being knocked out for procedures. It does not bring me joy. I do not get any sort of funny, happy, bubbly feelings about it. So to be able to be awake the entire procedure was incredibly calming for me, and I didn't have any issues. I just kept my head turned to the right so they could work on my ear, and they were sitting and talking to me the whole time. We spoke about the heavy body mod community, how the community had changed in Australia, certain artists that are operating out there, plans to tour, tour, you know, whether or not they would do another US tour and all this stuff. We just spoke a lot about a lot of different things. And it was like catching up with a friend for coffee. It was just really, really comforting, especially sitting there having someone operating on my ear. And of course, you can hear them in your ear operating, not just them like talking to each other and saying, you know, pass me this, pass me that, or talking to me about a situation, but you can physically hear them scalpeling your ear. So what they do, and it'll be a little bit tricky because obviously I don't have traditional ear anatomy now, but essentially they remove the helix. I could feel them like pulling on it during surgery. They remove the helix here. It's like peeled away like a banana. And then they take a scalpel in and they shape the cartilage and they put the internal stitches in and the external stitches in and they stitch it all together. Obviously that is a very crude representation of what is actually going on. I'm not the one performing the procedure. To my knowledge, to the best of my understanding, that's pretty close to how it goes down. So you can hear all of that. Hearing the scalpel slicing into your cartilage is such a unique experience. The internal stitches felt and sounded like a motorbike being revved in my ear. Like, I don't know how else to describe that to you. And the external stitches sounded like a very sad, very out of tune ukulele. Very interesting experience all around. Didn't freak me out. It was another thing that I was like really concerned about going into the procedure, was whether or not I was going to be able to handle hearing this, because what am I gonna do? I can't put anything in my ear to stop myself from hearing this. You know, it was just an inevitable part of the procedure that I had to be okay with if this was something that I wanted to get done. So I was being cleaned up and I'd been on the table for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, I want to say, I'd been operated on, and they were cleaning me up and they were like, oh, it's all done. And Sampa was saying that he was really excited about this ear because he thought it looked really incredible. And Anita was saying the same thing. She was like, your anatomy's come up beautifully for this pointing. Like, we're super happy with this ear. We think it looks really great. Why don't you take your time sitting up and go and have a look at what we've created for you. I sat up and they took me into this separate room with this mirror and I looked at my ear for the first time. And I didn't expect to have an emotional reaction. It was like I was looking at myself for the first time. It's like I could see myself for the first time. Like, there I was. I'd always been there, but now I can see it. I think I got an insight into the amount of euphoria that you must feel coming out of a very gender affirming procedure, whether that's top surgery or an augmentation of some sort or bottom surgery or whatever it might be. I can only imagine the amount of joy that you must feel going through such a big shift in a gender euphoric way. I felt like I saw myself for the first time. I got teary and I thanked them so much for their work. It was just incredible. And they took an after photo, which I will put up here. So here is the after photo that has these stitches. There's not a lot of blood in this after photo, so please, if you are not looking at the screen, you do not need to be worried about bruising or blood. At this point in time, there are stitches on the screen, but you can't really see any big bad nastiness or anything like that. So that's what my ear looked like straight after the procedure, which is basically the closest you can get for an entire year to seeing what the end result will look like. Because obviously you swell a hell of a lot and your ears change and move around a little bit and they settle in that first year of healing. So in that first like 5 minutes after your appointment is your insight into what they will look like in that year's time, because they will look quite bloody and bruised and swollen and almost not like ears for the first 2 weeks. It's quite a jump scare. I then was taken out of the operation room and that separate room where the mirror was, and I was taken back into the sort of like waiting area, and they sat with me whilst I had to take my 2 shots. And I know you're probably like, what the fuck are you talking about? You've just had your ears pointed and now you're doing shots. What's happening? Now, I want to say this very, very clearly. This was the after part of the procedure that I was concerned about, aside from the healing. I have avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. I struggle with something called ARFID. I cannot take a shot of alcohol, even if I wanted to. I've never been able to. My doctors have advised me not to drink anymore anyway because of my health issues that I've been diagnosed with most recently. I didn't think, because I was just scared of getting to my appointment, I didn't think about the alcohol. I didn't think about that particular part of the aftercare. The reason why they ask you to take these 2 shots is to just get that blood circulation going. And I get very flush when I drink. As I said, I've never been able to do shots, but like when I've drank a drink quick enough, you know, you get that warm feeling in your chest and in your stomach. I get the flush that happens across your face. Since my ear pointing as well, it flushes the top of my ears, which never used to happen, which is just a very interesting thing. I do get that like big red flush across my face, which is what you want because you want to make sure that blood is like pumping and flowing. I was nervous about taking these shots because I didn't bring any alcohol with me, and Sampa and Anita only had vodka and Coke, which I don't drink soft drinks or fizzy drinks. I've never drunk Coke before. I can't drink Coke, and the idea of having that mixed with vodka was just foul. But again, my fault, because I should have thought about bringing the alcohol with me, and I did rectify that the next day. But at this point in time, I was just like, we got to do what we got to do. So I tried to drink as much of the vodka as I could, and I tried to drink as much of the Coke as I could, and I left it at that. They checked on me, they double checked my ear, they waited with me for about 10-15 minutes after my appointment to make sure that everything looked good before they then called the taxi, and the taxi came to pick me up to take me back to my Airbnb. Sampa and Anita also made sure to add me on Facebook so that I had access to them. Sampa wanted me to send regular updates of my ear every single day from the top, the back, and the front of my ears so he could see everything that was going on. Now, again, photo warning, there will be some photos being thrown up around here. This was me right after I got back to the Airbnb. Sampa advised me to go and have a shower when I got home, run under hot and cold water so that the ear circulation starts up again. I had to take some photos after I did that. So this is the first photos. They get quite gnarly from here on out. So please, if you are worried about bruising or stitches or blood or plasma or anything icky regarding the body, these photos are not for you. I cast your vision away. You don't want to be looking at this. But this is what it looked like. So this was just this ear on day number 1. Okay, day 1, hour 0. Sampa wanted to check after a few hours that everything was going well. He said it was fine, that I could go to sleep, and the next day that he would see me again for this ear, my left ear. Also, just a quick side note with those photographs, taking the tops, back, and sides of your ears, get someone to take the photos for you and really make sure that they're clear photos. Put the flash on, have it taken in absurdly bright lighting. Just really make sure that you are getting every detail of these ears, because yes, the next day Sampa is going to see my final ear to get pointed, but after that, he's not going to see me again. You really need to make sure that you are being as transparent as possible with Sampa and Anita about how your ears are looking, because if you might think they look fine, but that's not your job. It's their job to tell you whether or not they're actually doing fine or not. Really make sure that these photos are crystal clear, because I wish that I had someone else taking the photos for me. Both the people that my best friend and I went over with were our partners at the time, and we've both broken up with those people 5 or 6 years ago. So at this point in time, like my partner was not a good person, is not a good person. The person that I was dating at this time, they couldn't care less about taking proper photos for me, which really showed up. Then there's so much that goes into that, so much that I could say, that's not what we're here for today. When it was time for me to come back from my appointment, my best friend was super thrilled with how my ear was looking. She was so excited. It was so cool to have someone so excited as I was, who'd already been through it. And also having someone who'd already been through it there helping me look after them. I was so unbelievably grateful to have her there. Getting blood flow back to my ear was incredibly stressful. Airbnb shower actually ran out of hot water, which really stressed me out. I had a partially warm shower and then a quick plunge cold shower, and tried to get some hot water back to finish it off to really get the blood flowing back to my ear. It was stressing me out. You know, I probably would have hung my head off the end of like a couch or the bed to try and get some more blood flow to it, and I didn't want to overload the area because it was still, it didn't hurt, but it was like, I can only describe it as like if you've ever worn really big like noise cancelling headphones and your ears kind of feel big, like muffled. That's kind of what it was like. And keep in mind, I couldn't feel my ear. My ear was starting to swell as well, so it was sticking out quite a bit. So I had to be really careful with like hugging people immediately. I had to be careful with that. I had to be careful with being in the shower. I had to be careful taking my shirt off. If you've ever had a fresh facial piercing before, you go through this phase of like not knowing where it is on your body. If you've never had a piercing before, trying to describe the concept of finding where something is on your body is very odd. I like to equate it to bruises as well. It's like the second you get a bruise, you keep accidentally smacking the shit out of it. You would never normally hit that area, but for whatever reason, it's like a homing signal and you just straight into that like all the time. It takes me a little while to figure out where it is, you know, because I'm trying to avoid it. I'm not trying to touch it. But the shower running out of hot water really stressed me out. I did not need that, and at least the next day I was aware of that, so I made sure that I didn't run the hot water for, you know, longer than a few minutes. As I was saying, Sampa and Anita say the first 24 to 72 hours are the most crucial, so they want you to stay very close by to them to make sure that you're not too far away, and they do want regular updates. Sampa and Anita suggested topical arnica cream for bruising for ear pointing. If I could do it again, I would ask Sampa and Anita whether or not I could use this. This is called Huradoid cream. I'm terrible with the pronunciation, I'm so sorry, probably butchering it. I use this to heal my nape dermals. It's good for scar tissue, swelling, anything like that, bruising. I would ask Sampa whether or not he would approve of using this. I'm obviously not going to suggest it if Sampa says no, but I would use that instead of the arnica. I didn't feel like the arnica did much for me personally. You can get oral arnica tablets, but Sampa doesn't recommend them because it doesn't target a specific area, whereas the topical cream, as long as you're not getting it in the actual wound, because we never ever want to put creams or foreign bodies ever into the wound. We don't want to be doing stuff like that. Now, when it comes to sleeping on a pillow, this is actually the third pillow that I had. This was the final pillow that I bought. The first pillow I bought, you are supposed to practice on before you get your ears pointed. I didn't do that. Plenty of people do, where they practice sleeping on something well before they actually have their ears pointed. Think air travel pillows that come around your neck. The ones that have the beans in it, not the way to go. And I figured that out the hard way. So this particular pillow that I had when we were in Spain was one of the beaded pillows. You put your head on it and you can hear the beads. It's super loud and it was very uncomfortable and I don't recommend it. The next one that I got, I'll cover later in this video, but for argument's sake, this is the kind of pillow that I ended up with at the very end of my ear pointing healing, mainly because of my nape dermals, which I will talk about later. But essentially with this, you just stick your ear in the hole and fall asleep, which I did the whole time that I had my ears pointed. I kept the soft side on my ears and then would just fall asleep. Very handy. This one's a memory foam one, so it's nice and soft and squishy and it doesn't make horrible loud noises when you try to sleep on it. So this is your friend. You can take it to partner's house, you can take it to piercing appointments, tattoo appointments, mod appointments, sleepovers. You can take these anywhere and you will be needing it. You probably want to get a washable travel pillow, or you want to get a travel pillow with a cover, or you want to make a cover for your travel pillow because you want to keep it as clean as possible, because you don't want to be getting shit on your ears. Like, it is a huge open wound. You really want to make sure that everything is as sterile as humanly possible. I also forgot to mention that in my little aftercare supply packet that I brought to Spain for me for my ear pointing, I bought a towel from like Target or Kmart, super cheap towel, didn't use it for anything, washed it and then brought it with me on my trip, and I had that under my airplane pillow. I had my pillow like this and I had the towel underneath so that if my ear bled onto anything, it wasn't going to stain the sheets of the Airbnb, because that was what I was concerned about. I did try to sleep on my unmodified ear that first night though, because obviously I was nervous about sleeping on my right ear. I didn't want to fucking mess that up. I am very much someone who thrashes around a lot in their sleep, so this was something I was a bit concerned about. I don't know what happened in my brain, especially after my second ear was done, but I just woke myself up. Every time I needed to turn over, I was just hyper aware and I was getting restful sleep. I want to say I was getting restful sleep. I can't remember being exhausted during this time, but I had tips and tricks for turning over and all that sort of stuff, which I'll get into after I talk about my second ear appointment. Then I woke up the next day and I had a little bit of crusty blood on my ears, so I had to clean off my ear as best as I could to try and get the dried blood and all that sort of stuff off. Again, Samba gives you that list of aftercare items that you should have brought with you, which is what I was using to help clean my ear off. Anita and Sampa will give you that list. You do not need that list from me. I had my best friend there, very luckily, so she was also able to help me clean off anything that I could. I made sure that I took another long warm shower to try and get rid of any of those scabs, and then got prepared for going to my first appointment on my own, because remember the previous day I went with my best friend and we got in the taxi together. This day was the first day that I was going and the last day that I was going on my own. I sent Sampa and Anita photos that morning, update photos of the top, back and side of my ear, which I will put here for you to have a look at. So this is what it looked like the morning after the appointment. So this was like not even 18 hours, I want to say, after my appointment, almost 24 hours, 18 hours after my appointment. You can see in these photos as well that I had a darker patch up the top of my ear as well, which he also prepares you for in that pre-op consultation that I spoke about. He gives you tips on how to fix it and how to manage all that sort of stuff, which I did, and it cleared up, not a problem. So after those photos had been sent off, I got into the taxi and I was on my way. Now keep in mind, I was in Spain. I did not have an eSIM for some stupid fucking reason, and I didn't really have a workable phone between the taxi ride and Sampa and Anita's place of operations. So I was a little bit nervous. Again, Anita met me out the front with a warm hug and a big smile, which was so comforting. She asked me how I was going with the ear we'd done the previous day, and she got to have a bit of a look at it. They sat in the waiting area for a little bit. They prepped the room. I went back down there. They did essentially everything they did the day before. Now, I will say that whilst I was speaking to Sampa, my ex did get into my head a little bit. The morning before I showed up for my appointment, my ex loved to neg me and made comments about how my ear could be better or could look better. Just thought that it would be more pointy back and that it's more pointy straight up. And I took that on board, and I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have taken that on board. And sometimes when you're in situations, especially in relationships, that aren't good, and I'm really playing this down for this video because it's not the point of the video, I should never have listened. I should have just let Sampa do his thing. I went into the appointment and I pretty much told Sampa what my partner had said, but I shouldn't have said anything. Basically what I'm going to tell you is don't listen to shitty partners. Just go and do something for yourself. Don't take on board anything they've got to say, because it's for you, it's not for them, especially something lifelong and body altering, you know. And I'm really grateful Sampa just did the ear perfectly. Just let him do his thing. You don't really have a lot of room to move with anatomy. If you have a very big ear, then you have a little bit more room to move as far as like whether it might curve further back or further forward. Like Sampa might be able to work with you about what you want, but you don't really get to pick the shape that you want. You're limited to what your natural anatomy will do for you. And my other ear did turn out very slightly differently to the other one, but you couldn't possibly fucking notice until I pointed it out. And even then people are like, I don't see any differences. But I also fucking love the differences between the two of them. Stick to your guns and listen to yourself and trust the expert. That's why you're there. Trust the expert. So we finished up this ear, slowly sat up. Again, I was on the table for about 2 hours. It was a little bit longer than my other ear. I noticed that they were having a little bit more tricky issues with the top of this ear. Nothing crazy. I could just tell there was something a little bit different because of the way they were speaking about it while it was all happening. During the procedure, Anita did ask me how I went the night before with sleeping on my ear, whether I had any issues, if I was comfortable, etc, etc. And as we were finishing up this ear, as they were closing me up, I felt this like cold thing fall on me, and she picked it up and she was standing over the top of me and she's like waving it in my face. She goes, oops, dropped your ear. And it was like a chunk of my helix just like in my vision. I was just like, what? It was just laughed. It was so unbelievably funny. Such wonderful, funny people. But essentially it was the same as the first day. We went in, they tested my ear to tell me whether or not I could feel anything. I said no, they continued the procedure, and then I was done just over the 2-hour mark. I got up very slowly. I went into the next room where they had the mirror, and I was finally able to see myself for the very first time with 2 pointy ears. Again, I got quite emotional looking into the reflection, especially considering that at the time, straight after you get your ears done, they do start to swell, which means they start to stick out like this a bit more, which was so fucking cute. If you have larger ears or you have ears that stick out, you have wonderful anatomy for ear pointing with Sampa and Anita. I think that they create some of the best end results for ear pointing. I'm so jealous. Like, I think they look absolutely gorgeous. I love my ears, don't get me wrong, but I just think that they look stunning. And I loved seeing that in the reflection. It was really lovely. And Sampa and Anita took an after photo of this one, which I will also put up here so you can see that is finally done now. Left ear is all complete, which just left me trying to get that circulation back, which meant I had to go back into the waiting room where I had learned from the previous day to bring my own alcohol. Now, Valencia is known for its orange juice and its oranges. So I went and bought some vodka, like a little bottle of vodka. Keep in mind, in Spain, vodka is like $6 a bottle compared to Australia, where it's like $40 a bottle for vodka. So crazy. We were able to just buy booze so cheap over there. It was such a wake-up call. I'd poured a significant amount of vodka in with a little bit of orange juice just so I could get most of the vodka down without drinking too much juice, because I really wanted to get that blood flow back. I took the alcohol and the orange juice in like a little takeaway containery thing. As I said, I just pre-mixed it before my appointment and took it with me, so that way I didn't steal their alcohol, and also had something prepared that better accommodated for my outfit as well. And I was able to keep it down way easier than the day before trying to drink the Coke and the vodka, which is already a foul combination to begin with. But they then monitored me for about 10 to 15 minutes, and this is where I said goodbye for the final time. They gave me a little bit of a tour, showed me some of their blood paintings, which were absolutely beautiful. They gave me a hug. I slightly brushed my ear on Sampa, and he was like, "You're gonna have to be careful of that now." And I was like, fuck, you're right. Like, thank you. Because I couldn't feel them and I didn't know where they were because they were slightly taller than they were before I had them pointed, and they stuck out a little bit more. I was just doing things on autopilot without even realizing that obviously I'd made this very critical, obvious change to the shape of my ears. I was then bundled into the taxi. I gave them another big wave from the car and taken back to my Airbnb. Now, in the car ride, the taxi guy clearly knew about San Bernardino because it sounded like he'd been to where they were operating before, and he was asking me very broken English questions about my ears, which was amazing. I love conversations like that, and we had such a wonderful time, and it was great. It added a whole different layer to the trip, and I really enjoyed that little moment of bonding with this stranger. So I arrived back at the Airbnb. Everyone looked at my ears. My partner at the time said that they liked my new ear way more than the first one, which just, again, looking back, I'm so glad they're not in my life anymore for so many reasons. I then had to obviously make sure that I got the blood circulating back in my ear. I'm gonna throw up some photos quite quickly after the shower that I had, because obviously I was aware that I could run out of hot water this time. Now, this is when things get a little bit shit for me, because again, I had a shitty partner at the time. You can see in these photos that my ear was quite pale. It wasn't getting as much circulation as the other one, and it was concerning me. I was stressed because I didn't want to be too far from San Bernardino, because if I was, obviously, then I wouldn't be able to have my ear worked on if it went necrotic. We didn't have to check out of the Airbnb until the next day. My partner at the time really wanted to get back to Valencia. So did my best friend's partner. And I was like, I kind of want to stay close to San Bernardino. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't really want to be leaving, especially when my ear looks like this. Like, I don't want to be doing that. I also just want to say my best friend and I did consider staying closer to San Bernardino at the Airbnb, but we didn't want to be alone, and we didn't really feel confident or safe traveling back all that way with no phones and no ability to contact the people that we were staying with. So basically my hands were tied. I wasn't going to stay behind. I didn't want to add stress to myself. So we made the decision together to get on the train. Basically my partner convinced us, I say quite loosely, to get on the train, which, remember, this train kept breaking down on the way down. And it was the last train of the night as well. We had to rush to get this train. It was against San Bernardino's advice, and I wasn't comfortable with it. I wish my ex had just fucking sat there and just put me first for once, but that, not possible. After the photo of my ear being a little bit more pale, Sampa did say to me, like, hey, it's looking a little bit pale. Give yourself 20 minutes and then go and have another shower. Go and have another hot shower and see if that's gonna make a difference. Then he asked me to take photos of my ears after I'd had the shower so he could see the before and after. During this time, I was on the train. These first photos that I showed you, the ones where they look a bit pale, I took those before we left the Airbnb. It was cold in Spain at this particular time, and I had bought myself a big scarf hood thing to be able to wear to keep my ears warm, because I wanted to make sure that we were keeping the circulation good and, you know, things were going well. Unfortunately for me, the hood that I'd bought was too heavy, and I couldn't let it rest and move my head because my ears were touching it. It was like a thick, heavy hood, and I didn't think about that before getting my ears done, because why would you? I had to take it off. So I'm sitting there, my ears are getting cold, I'm freaking out. Train was 20 minutes late. We got on the train and I started bleeding on the train, so I had these towels around me, and I had a few people like get up and move to a different section of the train. We eventually got back to Valencia, and this is what my ears looked like after I'd had a quick shower. You can see that they started to bleed. You can actually see the actual blood flow. The side view, you can still see that it was quite pale, whereas the back view, you can just see that the bruising is really starting to come in. You can see that the top half of that ear is blurry as fuck, and this was the ear I actually had an issue with. I just want to make you very aware of this. I'm not going to brush over the seriousness or any issues that I had with my ear pointing. Sampa said to me that he thought after he'd seen those photos that it was looking better, he'd seen an improvement. He asked asked me after I sent these photos whether or not I was going to go to bed soon. I told him I was not, and that I would be awake for a few more hours, and that he asked me to take some more photos before I actually went to bed. So then we have these photos from a few hours later, a few hours after the last one. This is all still on the evening, the first evening after I'd had this ear pointed. And you can really see that swelling coming in. You can still see that it's a bit pale, but the blood flow, you can really see that blood coming out the back of my ear. So we are actually getting blood flow. Sampa again just let me know, hey, send me some more photos every single day. I want to make sure that I can see that they're on the right track and that they're doing well. If you have any questions or any worries, you can call me, you can text me, don't worry about it. And I was really grateful for that because I felt guilty about bothering them, even though I shouldn't need to. I was nervous about bothering them. They just let me know that I could contact them anytime. And that is true to this day. As I said, I had this procedure done in 2019. I messaged Sampa last year, I think, asking a question about something, and he got back to me immediately. So like, they're always available to you for any questions that you might have about this modification. So this is why we go to them and we don't go to some fucking random person who just does the procedure and kicks you out and doesn't give you any aftercare and you end up in hospital, which is a whole different thing. But anyway, so then we have my right ear on the second day, I think, technically maybe the third day. This is where it all gets a little bit confusing for me, but I'll try and throw them up in order. So this is my right ear, at the least I can tell you that. You can see that the scabbing's starting to come up at the top of that ear there. You can see that it's really starting to bruise as well. The back's looking really good at this point. We don't have too much scabbing and too much blood buildup or anything like that. The top photo, again, way too dark. Then we have my other ear, this ear, which is doing exactly what this ear did on its first morning. You can see that it's real ugly looking. It's real swollen. We've got a lot of dried blood on the lobe as well. Basically, you can see from the very top of the ear that the colors actually started to come back. It took me a little bit to get comfortable to sleep that night. Obviously, I was nervous about waking up, etc. So what I would do when I had to roll over, I would put my finger well above where my ear was, like well above. I could feel where my lobe was, and I'd put my finger on my lobe, and then I'd turn over and I'd lay myself back down on the pillow, because remember, you can't feel your ear. You don't want to be laying down on it, obviously. The whole point of having my finger there was to ensure that I was actually lining it up with the hole properly, which is not something I usually have to worry about. You know, like just getting comfortable. So that was my trick, was just putting my finger there, turning over and laying back down. And that worked for me. I was also nervous about sleeping next to my partner at the time because I didn't want them to turn over and, you know, smack me in the middle of the night or whatever. My ex-partner was not someone who was very toss and turny in their sleep, so I didn't really have to worry about them very much. And they also slept on the very end, like the opposite edge of the bed, so I didn't have to worry about anything like that. But if your partner or the person, if you've got someone staying with you to help you, just really make sure that they're not like a thrashy, move around kind of person, because if that's the case, that would add so much extra stress for me. I would hate that personally. So just be aware of that. Now I will say with this ear, it took me a long time to try and get it clean. These photos that I took were me trying, like after about a 45-minute effort to try and get some of the dried blood off. I know now that this is probably heavily related to one of my chronic health diagnoses that I have received. I don't know whether or not other people also went through this specific issue with a lot of scabbing and a lot of blood buildup that they just weren't able to clean off. Sampa was happy with them after I tried to clean them a little bit more, and I sent through some more photos. He also video called me that day to make sure that everything was going as well as it could. He wanted to double check everything. I spoke to him about a few issues or worries that I was having, and he said everything was looking fine. Sampa just wanted to double check with me that everything was feeling normal after I said that I had a little bit of discomfort with my ear whilst trying to clean it. He just wanted to make sure that it was all good. I told Sampa that my ear was starting to get a little bit irritated with the amount of fucking with it we were doing, trying to clean it off. So he just said, you know, give it some time, wait a while. I also have this little tidbitty video here of my best friend looking after my ears, and she's looking after me, so this is a nice little tidbit. Unfortunately for me, my phone was stolen as soon as I got back into Australia after this holiday, so I don't have a lot of photos of this time, which is incredibly annoying. Thankfully, I do have all my ear pointing photos of when it was healing. That's something. I'm just gonna continue to throw up photos of my left and my right ear during these times. Like, again, swollen, bruised, otherwise looking pretty good. Pretty much the same the whole way through. Like, they start to go down in swelling and the bruising starts to change color as well. I'm sorry, I've got these photos down here, so I'm trying to like go through them while I'm talking to you. But I was basically just sending these photos of the front, top, and back to Sampa every day up until I had my external stitches taken out. I was sending these photos through to Sampa so that he could monitor everything that was going on and make sure that everything was a-okay. So now we're at about the 10-day mark. They're already starting to look really good. We've got a lot of that scabbing falling off. Things are starting to look better. And this is like right before I was about to fly back to Australia as well. I really would recommend waiting as long as you can before flying home. If you're flying to see Sampa or if you're traveling overseas, especially if it's a long flight, mainly because you can't sleep. You can't sleep on a long haul flight with fresh ear pointing. And if you can, you frighten me. I tried to use my travel pillow and like lay down on my partner's tray table so I could sleep. I could not sleep and I was getting overwhelmed because I was exhausted and I was in a little bit of discomfort because of the pressure changes. I couldn't feel too much. Like honestly, I might have taken ibuprofen on like the first night that I had each ear done. But other than that, I really didn't feel any sort of discomfort with my ears. I think I was just so overwhelmed and tired and I was stressed from traveling and my ex was being such a dick. We'd all had enough of the holiday at that point. We'd all been together for 2 weeks, so we were exhausted. Not being able to sleep on the flight was not good. We flew from Valencia to London and then London to Dubai and then Dubai to Australia. It was like 40 hours worth of travel or something. It was a very long trek home. On one of my pit stops on the way back to Australia, I also bought a Samsonite travel pillow, which I don't recommend if you have nape dermals. The reason why, and keep in mind, this isn't the Samsonite one, okay? So this isn't gonna have the same problem. But when I would sleep, the Samsonite one came a bit too far around and was impacting my nape dermal and was pushing my nape dermal to the side. And it was irritating the living crap out of it. Now, nape dermals, surface piercings, you will have them reject at some point unless you're a unicorn. I was sure I was heading into rejection land. Like if I've got any photos of my pissed off nape dermals during that time, I will throw them up here because my God, they were so angry. I thought I was gonna lose them. So don't do that. And same thing, now that I have eyebrow piercings as well, my eyebrow piercing, if I tried to lay on a pillow like that today, it would push it this way and it would piss it off. So just be really aware of any potential piercings or anything that might cause discomfort to lay on other than your ears, because I didn't think about that. The rigid pillow helped me because I wasn't really able to like rock my head back and forth on my pillow because it was so sturdy. That did mean that it pissed off my nape dermals quite significantly, as you could tell. My phone was stolen literally between the airport coming back to Australia and arriving home. Just such a fucking awful way to end the holiday. And then when we got home, our place hadn't been properly looked after. Like it was just, I had a lot of stress going on at this specific end of things. It took me a little longer to take photos for Sampa and send them through. We hit the 14-day mark. Hopefully I've just been throwing these up here because there are so many of them. I sent Sampa a message on the 8th of November and I just said, here are my ears at the 15 day mark now, wanting to try and wait until the scabs fall off before I take the stitches out, because obviously if I'm taking stitches out and I've got scabs, I could be causing more trauma to the area. I could be giving myself more scarring. Like I really wanted to try and get those scabs off, and Sampa did say that you want to try and have as little scabs remaining when you take your external stitches out. Sampa said that he was fine having me wait a few more days, and I booked to have my stitches removed on the 13th of November. Here are my stitches, here are my ears right before I went in to get my stitches removed. Literally 5 to 10 minutes before my appointment. I had my ears done on the 23rd and 24th of October, and I had my external stitches removed on the 13th of November. I went to go and see the beautiful Stab Rat, aka Eden, who is such a wonderful, absolutely gorgeous, talented piercer. She did my double eyebrow piercings for me. She's been servicing my jewelry for the last 4 years, I want to say. Absolutely incredible. Could not recommend anyone enough. And she does have experience taking ear pointing stitches out. So if you need someone, she is the person to be asking. I will say, taking the stitches out was the most painful part of the entire fucking ear pointing procedure. It sucked. I didn't expect it to hurt. My best friend told me it was the most painful and uncomfortable part of the procedure for me, and I was like, why did you tell me this now? Like, what? And it was really uncomfortable, and it absolutely sucked. I didn't have any issues with any stitches left over because Sampa's stitches, I mean, you can see them in the before photos. Sampa's stitches are so uniform and neat and tidy that even nurses and other medical professionals have commented on them in the past and said, whose artistry is this? They were a little bit difficult to get out. People are known to miss one or two and you end up with a little blister and you've got to send photos to Sampa and he'll tell you how to remove the little fiber or the stitch that's left over. So these are the photos immediately after the removal. Now you can see on my right ear, very top, there was like a little bit of blood in that one, and a little bit at the back you can see the wound sort of reopened a little bit. And then my left ear you can see as well, definitely some reopening at that back section. Not anything terrible, but like definitely notable. And you can see the scab at the top of my ear has come off. The top of my ear did create a problem for me later. I had an internal stitch pop out of my left ear, and I have photos of that so I can show you that as well. Basically after this, I didn't have to send photos to Sampa every day anymore. I only needed to send them once a month. Sampa and Anita really recommend using bio oil on your ears after the scabs have all closed up and after the stitches are out. You really want to make sure you're obviously not putting it in any open wounds, as I said earlier, but you also really want to be massaging them a little bit with the bio oil. You don't want to be working them and like putting any pressure on them or anything, but just like really lightly, just making sure that bio oil is on there. It's really going to help with the appearance of the scars as well, if that's something that's going to bother you. That was just what they recommended for aftercare, so I just followed their aftercare instructions. Fast forward 6 months into my ear pointing healing, and I noticed that I've got this little, I thought was a scab, but it was my internal stitch poking out. Sampa gives me some directions on how to fix it. My ex tries to follow those instructions. My ex causes me quite a bit of discomfort because I'm not going to speak on behalf of them. It could have been a very uncomfortable thing for them to try and navigate. I couldn't see what they were doing, so I don't get to pass judgment on that. They did a not wonderful job. I should have gone in to see Stabrat, aka Eden, and asked her to do it because she has the effective tools for it, being a piercer. But we got it sorted, no issues. My ear has not had any issues since, and obviously it's been 6.5 years. Have no issues whatsoever with the point or internal issues or sensitivity. Don't have any issues with the top of my ear whatsoever. All good with that one, thankfully. As I said, I'm not going to brush over the parts of this that were a little bit trickier to heal. Like, it is quite common to have an internal stitch problem, and Sampa does tell you that very upfront. Looking back at the photos of my ears during the healing process, like you can see, especially in these ones, which is around New Year's, December time, you can sort of see in this photo where the irritation would be. Again, the photos are absolutely shocking quality. My ex did not give a shit, did not fucking care. My health was not important. And you can really tell in the photographs they took, and I didn't want to create an issue or a scene by trying to get them to take them again because I would know better. The only other time that I noticed discomfort during my healing process was things like showering with a shower head that had like, I don't know how to describe this, but like bigger water droplets, like heavier water droplets, like a finer shower head or like a rain shower head, or I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but a gentler shower head where it's like a gentle rain instead of like pounding water. I found that it really irritated this flat part of my ears. It felt like they were bruised, and yes, my ears were bruised anyway. It just ached a little bit. It was just a bit uncomfortable. So just keep an eye out for like showers and stuff. That's something I didn't expect. Now, I hit the year mark. I sort of tried very gently, I wouldn't even use the word pushing, but like very gently, like touching my ear to see how it felt. Now, my ear felt tight. That's the only way I can try and describe it for you. It felt quite like a piece of string that was really taut, like it couldn't go any further. And I didn't want to lay on it because my body was just telling me it wasn't ready yet. So I didn't, and I waited an extra 6 months before I didn't have that like taut, tight discomfort feeling. I went back to sleeping on a very flat pillow, but found that my ears, I don't want to say quite sensitive, but they were more sensitive until about the 2.5 year mark, almost 3 year mark, to be completely honest with you. Like, they were fully healed and I could move them and I didn't worry too much about that sort of stuff. I wasn't out here like bending my ear or, you know, playing with them too much or anything. They were still healing, but I didn't feel comfortable like laying on my partner's shoulder. That's a person. Like, you're laying on someone who has their own brain and movements and will shift and do whatever they want. So it's a lot more, depending on the person you're laying on, it can be a lot more hard to lay on as well. I didn't feel comfortable laying on them until about the 2.5 year mark. I now sleep on, it's not even like a normal pillow, but to be fair, even before my ear pointing, I slept without a pillow for many years. I just don't. I go on and off with pillows. I really could care less about pillows. Pillow, quote unquote, that I currently use is actually just like a folded scarf that's just super soft and comfortable. I am hypermobile, so I have quite a bit of trouble sleeping comfortably anyway, but basically this pillow that I sleep on is just like a folded, really comfortable, soft material. And I've been sleeping on that for at least the last like 4 years. Like I don't have to worry these days. Anything that's super comfortable, like a Squishmallow, a super comfortable pillowcase, something that's really, really soft, like an Udi material or like wool. The only thing that I really find uncomfortable after a long period of time is memory foam pillows. I find that they make my ears ache quite easily, like after a little bit of laying on them. The same can be said if I took the palm of my hand and like fully squished my ear, like I wouldn't like punch it like that, but if I like held it here and like squished my ear in, it would probably ache after a while. As I said, I'm not out here like bending my ears or doing crazy stuff with my ears. They are a little bit more sensitive to the cold as well, not terribly, but I do notice that they can get a little bit cold, and that is definitely something you want to keep in mind if you live in a colder country or a colder climate where it might snow. You really want to be keeping your ears warm because of course you can end up with frostbite on your ears and you don't want to do that. So just make sure you're keeping them nice and toasty and you're looking after them. Even after my ears now, as I said, turned 7 this year, and even after that I wouldn't feel comfortable like picking up the whole ear and like flattening it against my face. I can bend it quite easily, like I don't have a lot of resistance or anything like that. I don't have any discomfort. I can press on them as much as I like. I can sleep on them. They feel like normal ears now. I obviously know that they are not normal ears. Anywhere on the body that you have any sort of surgery on will always be weaker than it was before you got that surgery done. The shapes did change from the original photos, so let's do like a really quick comparison. I'll put up some photos of what my ears look like today versus what they looked like the day I got the stitches out. And if I have any photos of the year mark as well, I'll put them up so you can see like how they've changed. My ears have been fully healed for many, many years now. As I said, they turned 7. I will also shamelessly plug my new Discord server. I have a Discord server where we discuss everything from tattoos, piercings, heavy body modification, suspension, alternative fashion. We talk about a whole heap of different stuff on my Discord, and I have several different channels that I really recommend going and checking out, especially if you're interested in heavy body modification. There's plenty of discussion about safe artists in there, about research tools that you can use. There's other people in the community who've had different sorts of mods done as well. Pop in there if you've got any questions. Otherwise, that ear pointing group is also fantastic. The Rusty Cyborg group is fantastic. People like Lynn Lowhide and their YouTube channel and their blog is also an invaluable resource. I really can't recommend those enough. There's so many avenues for you to explore more into the heavy body modification scene. And if this has been an introductory of that for you, then I am incredibly blessed because I've come full circle. 10 or 11 years after I first saw that ear pointing video, here I am making my own to tell others about my experience. That is the entire story of my ear pointing journey. I really just wanted to say thank you so much for the people who were interested in this video. This video is well beyond overdue. I've wanted to make it for such a long time, and I've just never been happy with how the videos come out. I wish that I had more content like this when I was looking into getting my ears pointed. I was very grateful for the content that existed at the time. I just wish that there was more of it. If I've helped you along the way, that's excellent. I really can't stress enough how careful you need to be looking at the artists. There are so many hacks out there. There are so many people who are not keeping you safe. There are so many people out there who do not have your best interests at heart. As I said earlier in the video, informed consent is all well and good, but it doesn't work if you don't have all the information. I've seen too many people in my DMs, in my community spaces, and in person who have been mutilated by people who did not know what they were doing. You really need to be doing an extensive amount of research on this stuff. This is a completely irreversible procedure that can have long-lasting effects on the rest of your life. So please, 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 please do your research. Do not just see this video and decide that it sounds like a cool idea and you want to go and get it done. Keep the community at the forefront of your mind, because unfortunately when things go wrong, it has repercussions for the community as well as the stupid person who performed it in the first place. There will be like an FAQ Q&A kind of video to come after this, so please, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments of this video. I have plenty that people constantly ask me all the time. If you would like to drop me any sort of question, do not worry about whether people have asked it before or anything like that. Just chuck it in the comment section, and if I haven't answered it before or I want to include it in the video, it will be in the next one. So please, please, please do that. If for whatever reason I managed to leave something out in this video, which I'm pretty sure I haven't considering the amount of notes that I took in preparation for this, but if I have for whatever reason, I will include it in the FAQ Q&A video. So don't worry, any information that I haven't included will be in that one. Oh, what a pleasure it is to be back. Jesus Christ. My God, I've got so many things to update you guys on, and I'm just finding so much joy coming back into social media content. I've been recording for 3 hours, really trying to make sure I got every piece of information out there for you. I hope it was good. I hope it was helpful. I hope you've had a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be in the world. Please stay safe, and I will be seeing you in my next video. Bye bye.